I'm sitting here, freaking out. It's 3:17 a.m. and I just found my wife outside. This is going to be a mess, as I'm still shaking. But let me explain it as best I can. So a bunch of years ago we lived in another house. One night I woke up in the middle of the night because I heard noises coming from the other half of the house. I quietly opened the bedroom door and immediately saw a light on in my wife's study, which was situated next to the kitchen. The house we lived in was a few blocks away from the bad neighborhood, so my immediate thought was that someone had broken in and was going through all the stuff in my wife's room, as my wife had come to bed with me several hours prior, and as far as I knew, she was still in bed. In my still half-asleep state, I just assumed she was still in bed. Turns out she had woken up, couldn't get back to sleep, and so went to her room to browse Facebook or whatever else for a while. I had almost confronted my own wife thinking she was a burglar. Now, in our current house, we have a screen door and a wooden door. The wooden door has a deadbolt on it, and you have to make sure that you take the house keys with you because if you close the wooden door, you're not getting back in unless you grab the hidden spare key or knock on the window to be let back in. So it's about an hour ago. I'm woken up by the front door rattling. I immediately grab my phone and pull up the security camera located right by the door. To my surprise, I see my wife standing there, kind of shivering. It's definitely her, because we've been married over a decade, and I know what my own wife looks like. She's dressed in the same clothing she wore today, a red top and black pants, 100% her. I don't know what she's doing outside, but she is. Confused, I roll over and there's my wife fast asleep. Remembering the incident in our last place, I use my phone screen to shine a light on her and confirm that it's definitely her, and she's definitely in the bed. At this point, I'm really confused. I get up and make my way through the house to the front door. As I walk into the living room, our cat looks up at me, half asleep. Normally, she's super curious about stuff going on outside. I would have thought that hearing the screen door rattling would have caused her to be at the door, trying to see what's going on. But it's as if she hasn't heard a thing. I stand by the door and call out, "Who is it?" "It's me. Hurry up and let me back in. I'm freezing." I went outside because I heard something, but forgot to take the keys in my bag with me. That absolutely sounds like my wife. Accent, intonation, knowledge about where her set of keys are, everything. But I'm not convinced, because I've just seen her sleeping in the bed with my own eyes. "Hold on a second," I tell her. Now I'm heading back through the house and into the bedroom. I wake up my wife and say, "This is really fucking weird, you have to see this." I open the camera app and show her the front door. She's still at the door, looking around, wondering what I'm doing because all I need to do to let her back in is to turn the handle on the deadbolt and open the door. "What the fuck? When was that recorded?" my wife says. I tell her, "It's not. This is live. You're standing outside by the front door. I just went down there and asked who it was, and your voice told me it was you and that I should let you back in because you're freezing and you left your keys in your bag." My wife gets up and peers through the bedroom window, as you can just see the front door alcove from there. She gasps and pulls the curtains shut. She turns around and I'll never forget the look on her face as long as I live. She's terrified. "That's me," she says. At this point, I'm freaked the fuck out. I'm wide awake. I'm speaking to my wife, and I'm physically touching her while trying to peer out the window with her, but there she is, standing outside in the very outfit she wore today. Same hair, same glasses, same everything. We walk into the living room and I grab the big flashlight that I have. It's a big, sturdy metal, super bright light, great for blinding people and hitting them if they get too close. We stand by the door again. "What's your name?" I ask. She tells me her full name, including her middle name. It's correct. "What's your birth date?" She tells me it's also correct. What did we have for dinner tonight? She tells me this too and tells me that I cooked it. This is right too. I can hear my wife standing next to me, trying to control her breathing as she's scared out of her wits. I nudge her and whisper, "Ask her something only you would know." After a moment to steady herself and think of something, she speaks. When we last stayed with my parents, what change had Dad made to my old room? There was a pause. "Who is that?" the person outside said. "Why aren't you letting me in? You know it's me. You're starting to freak me out here. Who is that inside with you? Is that a recording of me? What's going on?" I said, "Answer the question. What change had been made to your room when we last visited?" Another pause, then finally, there was a second bed added, as Max and Damien slept in there while visiting Mom and Dad. There's an audible gasp from my wife next to me. Now we're both freaked out. I grab her hand and lead her back into the bedroom and turn the lights on. We're still awake, watching the cameras. The other person walked towards the backyard, presumably to grab the spare key, but that was about 40 minutes ago, and I haven't seen them since. I'm too shit scared to go to bed because I'm scared that this person, who knew everything about my wife, will find the spare key and enter. I don't know who the fuck they really are or what they want, but I'm not sleeping. In the quiet solitude of their suburban home, Kim felt an uneasy presence lurking just outside the kitchen window. She glanced. A figure standing in the street stared back, face obscured by darkness. After wiping her eyes, the figure disappeared. She confided in her husband James, but he dismissed her concerns. "Well, have you been taking your medication?" As the days passed, she noticed James growing distant, taking on extra hours at work to support their children's private school tuition, despite him making more than enough to clear the bills. Kim's mind twisted with suspicion, leading her to believe James was seeing another woman. The emotional distance between them only deepened, but she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was terribly wrong. Seeking solace, she shared her concerns with her closest friend, who tried to soothe her fears about the figure and attributing James' behavior to work-related stress. Yet, the unsettling figure outside the window persisted, making her doubt her friend's reassurances. One afternoon, Kim and the kids returned from the daily walk, only to find James home early, an unusual surprise. He enveloped them in warm hugs and kisses, as if they had been apart for years. His newfound attentiveness startled Kim, who couldn't believe he was planning to cook dinner, a task he had never undertaken in their entire marriage. As they gathered around the dinner table, Kim watched in awe as James displayed extraordinary culinary skills. It was as if he had a hidden talent that had remained concealed until now. The family chatted joyfully about their day and the pleasant weather during the walk. Kim's heart swelled with a mix of happiness and confusion, wondering what had brought about this sudden transformation in her husband. Excitement filled the air as the kids spoke about their upcoming talent show. Kim reminded James of the event, causing him to reply with a heartfelt promise to take the day off, something he wouldn't miss for the world. The surprise made Kim audibly gasp, hardly believing the change in her husband's demeanor. Eager for some alone time with this newly attentive James, Kim initiated the children's bedtime routine earlier than usual. But just as they were about to escape to their bedroom, she remembered the kids' school uniform still in the wash. Reluctantly, she descended the creaky wooden basement steps. As Kim moved the laundry to the dryer, a putrid stench permeated the air, filling her lungs with dread. She followed the scent, her heart pounding louder with every step. Finally, she stood before the crawlspace door and hesitated before opening it. The sight that greeted her was beyond her worst nightmares, her husband's lifeless body dressed in the same clothes he wore for work this morning. Kim dropped to her knees sobbing, remembering the violent act she had just done. Just as her reality started to shatter, their son called down to her asking, "What's for dinner tonight?" "It's raining, Jesse. Come inside," I called. It wasn't the first time I'd caught my Irish setter eagerly scooping up grass and dirt with her paws, but it was certainly the first time she'd succeeded in uncovering something horrifying. "What the fuck?" I screamed. I locked eyes with Jesse's discovery in the ditch, a woman's corpse. My heart cascaded towards the earth, pulling my limp body in tow. And as darkness enveloped my vision, I prayed that it had all been a direful dream. When I regained consciousness, I found myself lying in the wet grass, eyeing both the setting sun and Jesse's slobbery tongue above me. "I'm awake," I groaned, sitting up and stroking her. "I just took a quick nap. Why am I—" Then it all came back to me. And even in that darkening garden, which backs into a large forest, I could see what lay in the hole. Me. I felt my chest twist and tighten as I expended all of my energy in an effort to retain consciousness. There was absolutely no denying it. The lifeless body in Jesse's ditch was an identical copy of my own. From the brunette hair to every freckle on her newly rotting face, everything but the horizontal scar on her forehead. I ran inside, while Jessie continued to flip between me and the dead woman who looked like me. My dog whimpered in confusion, and I joined her. With trembling hands, I managed to pick up my phone from the kitchen counter to ring my husband. "Hi, honey," he said. "It's a bit late to be ringing me, isn't it?" "Jack, you need to come home," I shuddered. "What's wrong, Sophia?" he asked. "I'll be home tomorrow." "Please ask your boss to let you come home early," I whispered, refusing to peel my eyes away from the patio doors overlooking Jesse's ditch. "What's going on?" Jack asked a little more urgently. Jesse found something in the garden that I can't explain it over the phone," I cried. I was met with silence, a pause that filled me with inexplicable dread. It must have lasted no more than 2 seconds, but it was enough to raise every hair on my flesh. And then, "You sound really worked up, darling," Jack said. "I'll ask Stuart to drive me home early." That slowed the immediate alarm bells, but it did not still them. I let Jesse inside and the two of us curled up on the sofa, lights on and patio curtains drawn, though that did nothing to resolve the anxiety, as I knew what lay beyond them. 2 hours later, Jack returned from his business trip, and Jesse bounded into the hallway to greet him. "Where's your mommy?" he cooed. "Is she okay?" When my husband entered the lounge, he beamed brightly at me, a soothing smile that would usually put me at ease. "What did our crazy dog find?" he asked. I need to show you, not tell you," I said. I drew the curtains and opened the patio doors into our pitch-black garden. It must have been around 10 p.m. The world felt unnervingly still. The only sounds were my squelching footsteps in the grass and Jesse's nervous panting. I pulled my phone from my pocket and shone the flashlight into the ditch, but what I saw filled me with as much terror as the initial discovery. "What am I supposed to see?" Jack asked, sighing. The ditch was empty. "No, it was right there," I whispered breathlessly. "I passed out when I saw it." Jack nodded. "Well, that probably explains it. You got confused and fainted. You're prone to doing that." "Yes, but I don't hallucinate things. And the body was still there even after I regained consciousness," I huffed. Jack smiled and stroked my face. "You always misremember things. Why don't you head up to bed? I'll make a McDonald's order. I need some food, and you could do with the coffee." I begrudgingly agreed, watching from the bedroom window as Jack hopped into a car and went on to the late-night McDonald's trip. But I didn't go to bed. Not after the house's external lights revealed something terrifyingly damning on the bumper of his BMW. Dirt. My heart was pounding as I pieced together what I could, that Jack had clearly slipped into the garden and moved the body to his car before coming inside. Why? Well, I had an inkling as to how I could find the answers about the man I thought I had known for 7 years. With Jessie following closely behind me, still rattled about her discovery in the garden, I headed to Jack's office. It wasn't a room that he had ever forbidden me from entering. However, one of his desk drawers had a lock, which had always been a point of contention in our relationship, something that Jack forever dismissed as a security measure against intruders. I didn't know how much time I had before he returned home, so I got to work. I strode through Jack's cluttered workspace, rounding the corner of the desk. Without hesitation, I proceeded to hammer away at the locked drawer with the blunt end of a heavy ornament. Jesse pawed at the door inquisitively, barking at the excessive noise. "That's it, girl," I grunted, hammering away. "Let's make it look like an accident. You were all worked up after all." After repeatedly bludgeoning the drawer lock, the handle eventually snapped off the wood, and the drawer slid open. Inside, there was nothing but a small piece of paper with a long series of numbers and letters. Passwords. Not what I'd expected to find, and I knew I had limited time before Jack returned, but there was no way I could waste the opportunity. Everything that I had known about my husband was a lie. I threw caution to the wind, turning on the monitor and sitting in his chair. The password worked. As the desktop loaded, I wondered what I would find. What sordid secret was my husband keeping? I didn't want to imagine why there would be another me in the shallow grave. Cloning, time travel, my head was spinning. I searched the computer and found a folder. Inside the folder, I found neither evidence of some master cloning program nor evidence that my husband had traveled to the future and murdered me. Yes, I'm aware that my hypotheses were ludicrous, but the truth is far less believable. What did I find? Just one Word document with an obscure title, The Seed Process. I opened it to find diagrams and instructions for some sort of ritual, the seed process. I violently trembled at the crudely drawn diagrams, depictions of humans being lobotomized, brains in jars, roots sprouting from the pink matter. I skim-read the list of instructions, and the picture of the seemingly supernatural ritual started to form. Remove the brain, plant the seed, water the brain and watch limbs grow. Let a new, improved human flourish. Mold your loved ones in your desired image. No more resistance. I started to wail uncontrollably, and Jesse nuzzled my leg to soothe me. I could say more of what I read in that document, but recounting it in greater detail would only make me relive that sickening feeling, a horror that cannot be put into words. Jack has been removing my brain, burying my corpse, and regrowing me from the brain outwards using a seed, whatever the fuck that means. I don't know how many times he's done it. I don't know how many versions of me are buried in the garden, in the forest perhaps. Jesse likes to dig there too. But it explains so much. The blank spots in my memory, the misremembering Jack always mentions, the fact that every time I notice a red flag for my husband, I wake feeling different, refreshed, compliant. Every time he's been chipping a piece away from me, changing me, improving me. That night, before he came back to the house, I took Jesse and left without a word. Is he tracking me? I hope not. Whoever me might be. A far stretch from Sophia, that much is certain, and it fills me with a deep sorrow. It also explains the unsalvageable chasm within me. Some repressed, unreachable past version of myself lies at the bottom of that well, I imagine. After all, Jack killed the real Sophia long ago. Who knows how deeply into the forest she's buried?